And so I did some research, a little bit about Krevri and traditional winemaking and this stuff. And I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go and I'll try to live with a winemaker, and maybe they can teach me and I can see what it's like. And this was my idea. And I should say, the first fellowships I applied for, the due dates were in early February, like 2 weeks before the Russian invasion started. So, in America, people have no idea how Americans have a tendency to assume that anywhere else is unsafe. So it was like Harvard has several fellowships that you can apply for after your senior year to do some kind of travel, and the travel doesn't necessarily need to be for strictly research or academic purposes per se. It so happened that my dad found a Georgian wine at a store, okay, and he brought it home, and then we were having having wine with dinner, and I was like, it was almost started as a joke. It was like, you could do something about Georgian wine, Oliver, and I was like, yeah, I guess I could. And I was looking for examples of what other people had done. So I'll give you some examples for comparison. Some woman was a vegetarian and used this fellowship, learn about beef farming in some remote country, I don't know. Somebody else went to Scotland and to Kazakhstan, I think, to learn about traditional falconing. A problem I've noticed at a lot of wine tastings and other similar events is they only make you pay at the end. And then people are drunk, of course, and then they forget to pay, and there's nobody to check to make sure.
Here, living in Georgia, what do you miss about America or your lifestyle or whatever?
Okay. This is kind of silly, but there's nothing I miss that is really important, actually. But something that I think about the most are just
გამარჯობა, ეს არის მეცნიერება ყველასათვის, მე ვარ ჯუანშერ ჯეჯელავა და ყველაზე საინტერესო ის არის, რომ ჩვენ ვცდილობთ გავაფართო ჩვენი სტუმრების რიცხვი და ეს არის საიდანაც მოყავს სტუმრები და ამ შემთხვევაში ჩვენ ვისაუბრებთ ახალგაზრდასთან, რომელიც ამერიკიდან ჩამოვიდა საქართველოში იმისთვის, რომ შეისწავლოს ქართული ღვინო. და აი ამ დეტალებზე ჩვენ ვისაუბრებთ, რა თქმა უნდა ვისაუბრებთ ინგლისურად. და ალბათ ეს ეპიზოდი იქნება ორ ვარიანტში. ერთი არის ორიგინალი საუბარი, ჩემი ბანძი ინგლისური და იმის კარგი და მეორე თარგმნილი, ვისაც თქვათ გაუჭირდება გაგება რამის სუფთა ინგლისურად რო დავტოვოთ. და ორი ვერსია ალბათ დაიდება SoundCloud-ზეც და YouTube-ზე ან სუბტიტრებით შემოვიფარგლებით, ან ბოლომდე ვთარგმნით ეპიზოდს, ეგეთ ჯერ არ გადავიწყვეტია. Okay, let's start it. So briefly, I just said that will be experimental recording of the podcast episode. The podcast on my native language sounds like science for everyone. Okay. But it doesn't relate it to science strictly. But on English name, I'm still working because I do not have quite English stream. I have some ideas about that, but I think with you we'll maybe brainstorm these ideas. Okay. So, hello, Oliver.
Hi.
Let me introduce myself. So I'm a professor in physics. You can call me Dr. J, informally. But Juka is a shortcut, or full name Jeuancher Jejelawa. And could you introduce yourself briefly for our viewers or...
Yeah, absolutely. So my name's Oliver Wolf. I've just finished my bachelor's at Harvard. I'm from America, and I'm spending a year in Georgia to, among other things, to learn about Georgian wine, language, and other stuff related to the Caucasus.
So you finished the college?
Yes, I've just finished last year.
And you are not a bachelor yet, right?
I just received my bachelor's degree.
You received a bachelor?
I just finished, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So college and universities.
Oh, sorry. Yeah,
So
it's confusing. Yeah, in the States, yeah. I mean, college and university, they usually mean the same thing, and or you might say undergrad or your undergraduate studies, usually 4 years for a bachelor's degree.
So now you're making master. If you continue your research, you should go to a master or like another bachelor program or what?
Sorry, I'm going to give a overly detailed answer maybe, but I mean, it depends on the field, of course, because of course, the next degree naturally would be a master's, but especially in humanities fields or any field that is mostly only academic, it's common in the U.S. to, as I will, go straight from bachelor's to a PhD program.
Oh, I see. But it's a joint program, right? It's 2 plus 3 or something, right?
Yes, it's usually, it can be quite long, and you'll write a master's thesis in the middle of your PhD studies. But it's this way because, in my field, for example, philosophy, there's very little use for a master's degree by itself. I see. Yeah.
Well, okay. Okay, master degree in philosophy is like not counting, you say?
Well, there are.
I mean, like it's not high enough, and like somewhere in the middle.
I mean, in that field, among others, there aren't that many jobs that directly require a degree in this field outside of academia. And if you're going into academia, I mean, for most things, you want a PhD, and. Yeah, I mean, there are a few, basically very few universities offer a terminal master's program, like just a master's. They don't offer it. The only ones that do, it is explicitly for somebody who wants to do a PhD, but for example, maybe they didn't study philosophy in their bachelor's and they need to get more, they need to get study more in it before they are ready to begin a PhD.
I see.
This is basically the only reason somebody does a master's in philosophy. And I think it is true in some other fields as well. But, again, in other fields, obviously, it's different. And in many, master's is normal, or you need to do a master's and then a PhD, as is more common in Europe and stuff. And I don't know. But,
I see. Yeah. I see. Oh, that's interesting. And could you tell us briefly, like, where are you from, and like what is your background, and like where like
how I got about to
no like where you grow up, like
absolutely. So I'm from near Boston, so in the northeast of the U.S. From a town not exactly in Boston, but near Boston, called Arlington.
I heard about this town.
Oh really? There are bigger. There are other Arlingtons, but they're bigger.
Maybe. Okay.
But also, I mean, some I'm sure some famous people who taught maybe at Harvard or MIT, and some may also lived in Arlington. I don't know. So maybe you've heard of this one. But I've lived there most of my life. I did live in Tajikistan for a year when I was a kid. And also spent some time in South India, but that's mostly where I've lived.
It's probably from your parents, like
yes.
You travel with parents. And what's the profession of your parents?
Yeah, so my dad is a professor of music and South Asian studies, and so his discipline is is ethnomusicology. So like basically the intersection of music and anthropology, and through his research, I got to travel with him. And my mother is not a professor anymore, but she was also in South Asian studies and focused more on language and literature. So yes, I was very lucky as a child to be able to travel because of them.
Okay, and then you enter university in another city or in another town? Yeah,
so. Well, first of all, I started. So in America, before university, we have high school, and it's 4 years normally. But I actually really didn't like high school for various reasons, and I found out that there was one university.
Is the thing like in the movies, like about high schools? Are the things true? Like this so horrible bullying part and stuff?
First of
How
all,
realistic are they?
Yes, it depends on where, of course, because it's different in different parts, and it depends on when. You know, a lot of the movies people you see are from like America in the 80s, for example. But,
sure.
To speak very broadly, obviously some things are a little bit exaggerated, but basically yes, it's basically the basic thing, and what it looks like definitely is true. I mean, the way you see high school and like the structure and the bells and everything, it's normal. And a lot of the social crap you see in I mean, some version of it is totally true. So I think it's more, you know, it's hard to talk at such a broad level, but if I have to, then more true than not, I would say. But anyway, so I was in my second year of high school, and you know, I was doing okay, but I was just, I mean, partially because I was interested in philosophy, but at least in America, this is not a normal part of the curriculum in high school. You have English, history, science, or whatever, but you don't have philosophy, and I wanted to do more of that. But there were also other reasons. I didn't really like high school. And then I found out there was this one college, as far as I know, it's the only one that's exactly like this, that allows you to start studying, I mean, go to college without having finished high school, without having graduated. And you could start even 2 years early.
Okay. And the curriculum is different a bit? Or
it's basically the same. This is what's different. There are many schools in the US that are like, you can take college courses while you are in high school, or you can go to a high school that is a little bit more like college and stuff like this. But this was the only one I heard of. There's literally, it's a, you know, accredited.
Could you say the name of it?
Yeah, so it's, I hope I'm not sponsored by
the... Yeah, sure. We're just curious.
It's Bard College at Simon's Rock, so it's kind of a long name. Because
it's not state university.
No, it's private. It's a small liberal arts college. It's owned by a larger, well, still small, but a larger college called Bard College, and but it is a separate campus and technically a separate institution, but they own it. You know, it's part of their network, sort of. So that's why that's the name. The short name is just Simon's Rock. You know, this was the only place, as far as I know, is like this, where it's a full, you know, accredited higher institution of higher education that offers a bachelor's degree after 4 years, and they'll accept you even if you don't have a high school diploma. In fact, almost nobody who goes there does. And most people who are there because they start early, they're only 16 or 17 when they begin their studies. And so as soon as I found out about this, I was like, well, who wouldn't want to do this? So I was like, goodbye high school, and I applied there, and I got in. So that's what I did, and yeah. So then I spent 2 years there.
And do you need to win? I don't know, the finance for it, or you just go?
It's very expensive. I mean, all universities are in America, but private ones more than public. Almost everybody, when they apply to college in the US, they also apply for financial aid.
Okay, and then you get a reply. It means automatically then usually.
They'll usually tell you, okay, we've analyzed how much money you and your family make, and our calculations determine that you can pay this much of the total cost. So we will pay this cost, and you must pay this cost. But it is still a lot. Because the total cost is just enormous. And almost nobody pays the total amount unless they are from extremely wealthy family.
And probably own the university.
Yeah, or something like this. So, for example, I think, this is approximate, but I remember, just a disclaimer, if I go at some point, if I ask something inappropriate or something, you can just say... It's no problem. Yeah. Thank you, though. I think when you do tuition, because, in America also, usually you live at the university in the dorm and you have food given to you and whatever. So this all adds up. It's not just paying for courses. So in total, with all of this, I think at Simon's Rock, the cost was $70,000 for 1 year. So it's if you didn't get any aid, so but very few people can afford to just pay this for one child, right?
Or they take the debt, or no?
Well, yeah, you normally, yes, you have to take out loans. Yes, it's either from the federal government, or you can also apply for scholarships based on whatever externally, or sometimes the university has special scholarships besides just the normal financial aid. But anyway, so just for example, I think we were, I think $40,000 for us was paid, but we still had to pay $30,000 every year. And this, I mean, we still had to take a loan for this. So obviously the calculation is really, their financial aid calculation, I mean, it helps obviously, but they still make it, they do the bare minimum so that you will go, and
probably you're quite motivated this way.
It depends. I mean, so I'm very lucky that, my father chose to take the loan in his name. So he didn't want me to have this burden right away getting out of college. I'm just starting and I have to pay. Because usually, this is the way it works. They don't make you pay while you're in, if you are the student taking the loan while you're in college, you don't have to pay. But then when it comes, you have to pay, and the interest increases, and it's just, as it's not always available to get a good job right away out of college, and it can immediately get very bad, which is why you hear about this in America. A lot of people are complaining about it, and they want something to be done. But I'm very lucky in this respect. But yes, to answer your question, I mean, many students now, I think, because of how expensive college is, and because a college degree, we realize now that it no longer just guarantees you a good middle class job anymore in America. A lot, I think, I mean, I don't know the statistics, but I think it's true. A lot of people are choosing fields that they think will make them money right away. And so there is less interest in
payouts quickly.
There's less interest in exploration and finding yourself and stuff. There still is, and it depends on the university. But
so it's more like calculated investment in the future.
Yes, people think about it this way, and obviously this raises.
It should be like this probably at some point.
In some way, but it's also a question because people think of college. A lot of people in America think of college like this as an investment, but as someone who is interested in academia, this raises difficult questions, right? Because isn't academics not just about making you productive in some narrow sense, but also, I mean, able to think intellectually and be a good citizen. This is what the humanities historically are supposed to be, because you can be very productive at some specific skill, but if but still not be able to think critically about the issues in your life and in your country or whatever. And so, but this type of thing is not encouraged, I think, in America anymore, by and large, because everyone is worried about debt and getting a good job right away.
Okay.
So, but you're right. There is also some motivation to do well and study because you have this. I don't think it's a good trade.
I see.
But it's true. So
because here we have a lot of students who do not pay, they win the financial support from the government, but it has double-edged sword, because they don't pay, they usually don't care. And for example, they can fail the course, but it's not only $60 to redo this course.
I see.
So it's for some people it's a lot of money, but to the other hand it's not as much as
America. No. I mean,
may I ask you to clip this one?
Sorry.
No, it's okay. It's my fault.
Should I put it?
Wherever you feel comfortable.
Okay.
Or here you can clip it
Okay. Oh, that's how it works. Yeah. Okay. Good.
Yeah, I think so. So this is just a backup.
Okay.
I had 2 backups, and 2 backups already failed, so I had 4 of them, but now I have only 2.
Okay.
No, 3. Now 3 I have.
Very good.
This one is recorded independently. That one is also recorded, but it's also sending the signal in the camera, so it's recording the signal as well. So
I like that you think you have backup plans, because you can never. One always should.
I always experienced I bought the some I don't know high-tech gear, and then my first try and it's failed. I mean, it's failed in a stupid way. So, for example, I have this experience on Maldives, like completely jumping out of this conversation. But I was on Maldives and imagine the situation. I'm scuba diving. Then I jump into the boat, and then engines is on, and we are racing back because it was like tide, and we need to be in time. And then from the left, there was a plane landing, and then like here is like nice, I don't know, like people on a yacht. And I was thinking like, oh my God, this is perfect moment on my GoPro footage. It will be like awesome. And then I take this GoPro and say like SD card error. All footage is nothing. And it was like I was just excited to think about this landing plane from behind, and wow. And the same with the recorders, like sometimes. But now I think I'm settled and everything will be fine.
Very good.
I hope so. Okay.
I was talking about my story, I guess. And this.
May I switch like focus on your decisions? Like why you choose like philosophy? You said like you was interested in, but for me it's now not, like broadly speaking, it's not time of philosophy. So it's more like engineering, like maybe lawyer because like maybe some scandals or like celebrity, but philosophy, like why?
Yeah, it's a very good question. Well, again, I must start back with this time when I was going to college and leaving high school. Because at the time, I already had some interest in philosophy, but at the time, my main interest was computer science, which I think you would agree is like like a lawyer and engineering, like much more, much more popular and talked about field at the moment.
Being a hacker is like always like appealing.
It's a cool dream, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
we never done anything like this, and we of course like we disagree with any legal activities.
Yeah. But there are still parts of it that interest me. So in college, my big idea was I was going to do both, and this way, I could study both, and this way, I would have,
quite unique skills.
I would be able to study something that was a side passion of mine, and also I'd be ready to get a job or whatever. Have a lot of jobs available was the idea, because I thought computer science. Oh, you must be able to get a good job so easily with this. And then I took a computer science course and a philosophy course, and some, as well as a couple other courses in my first semester of college, and I was just I did well in the computer science course. It was a system programming course, if this means anything to anybody. And whatever, I learned C and whatever. So, it was interesting enough. It was okay. But I just found myself like, I enjoyed the course somewhat, but I felt like everything in the course was just about and the people who took the course and in general studied computer science, they basically weren't, it seemed like everybody, rather than being like interested in like something fundamental about it, people were kind of just interested in like getting good jobs and making money and stuff. I mean, not everybody, but it felt like the professor was also very like focused on, it was like all practical. Like there was no, whenever I wanted to talk about something like, I don't know.
Philosophical aspects of C++, right?
Or something like more, there is something called theory of computation, right? There's a lot of theory and stuff. And if I ever wanted to talk about this or like ask questions about it, my professor was it's funny, actually, she was a Russian woman, and I liked her. She was funny, but she was very like, everything has a simple answer. There is no, complicated things, and you just learn it this way and this works. Yes, exactly. So it was just, and she was, and this college was very, very small. So the computer science department only had 2 professors, and she was one of them, and the other one was like only part-time. So this was who I was working with if I was going to continue. And then also because of that, and because I also didn't like have a lot in common with my peers as well, I was like, okay, the material is still kind of interesting, but I don't know. And And then, meanwhile, in the philosophy course, the philosophy course I took it's called Epistemology, which is a main field of philosophy. It's basically about the study of knowledge, and what some of the fundamental questions are like: what is knowledge? And what are the how can when can be said to know something? And there are a lot of related questions, also related to the nature of science and about like how to make sure reliable knowledge, and how can we as individuals learn to discriminate between which beliefs to accept and which to reject and stuff like that. And it was very different from any kind of philosophy I'd previously encountered, because it was a lot more analytical. It was not like a lot of people think of philosophy as like it's all just about reading what these men from hundreds of years ago said and like learning what they said, and that's kind of it.
Memorize it, and then
like a lot of people seem to think this is what, or it's always talking about Aristotle and so it's like, and these figures are important as well. But I was very interested because all of these. Everything we were reading in this course was from the 20th century or newer. It was all very, and I came to learn that actually the predominant, philosophical tradition in the English-speaking academia, especially the U.S. and in England, is basically its foundations are only in the late 19th and early 20th century, and it still pays attention to history, but it's very interested in being sort of more contemporary and being an active discipline, and also in being very careful about language and being precise, and in that way trying to learn something from science. And we can get into more into that later maybe. But anyway, the point is, for this course, I was just like I was like, this is so, I was just really fascinated by the problems we discussed in this course, and I participated a lot in class. I loved writing the papers, and it was just great. And I was like, I know I want to do more of this. And then I just never took any more computer science courses. And before I knew it, I was like, everyone talks about how hard it is to get a job in academia, and in humanities it's hard to get a job in any other field, and blah 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 blah. And I said, you know what, I'm going to try anyway. And that's kind of the path I've been on since then. So I hope that answers your question.
I think it answers it, but also it also emerged in other questions. Like for example, you say like. Epistemology, yeah. It needs to answer several questions. For example, something like, when do we know that we learn something, or how we... This type of questions. And the thing is, I always had an impression that if someone don't want to answer a question, he said like, oh, this is philosophical question. And I will not answer. So this course actually answers this question? Yeah, so back to philosophical question. So now philosophy is not, so philosophy of 20th century is now, or 21st century, first century, it's not about like not answering the question.
Well, okay, so let's start by checking to make sure I'm understanding what you're asking. So it sounds like you're saying, in the common conception,
yes,
philosophical questions are seen as like sort of unanswerable and too difficult, and like,
or they're buried under so many details that you will not get an answer, a usable answer.
Right, and maybe they're not even important to answer, maybe they're interesting, but we don't need to worry about them in order to do whatever it is that we're doing. It's very similar. Here's another thing we say in English, at least, that is very similar. That we say like, oh well, have you ever, like, that's just semantics.
Sure.
Yeah, when they say, oh, it's just about, to me, as someone interested particularly in the philosophy of language, this is like, no, but semantics is how we communicate. This is actually very important. but anyway, so it bothers me. But I still, anyway, so.
This is the same as grammar, right?
Not exactly. I mean, okay. I guess I'm making an example of it here, but I can certainly. They're certainly nearby. They're neighbors, maybe.
You making an example of grammar? Oh, come on! Like, anyway. I'm like walking example of like how you do not speak English, probably.
No.
Okay.
Anyway, so but about philosophical questions, no, I mean most of philosophy still concerns itself with the so-called traditional questions of philosophy, these big questions. But it takes a much more, we like to think we've made some progress, even if little. I'm not saying I'm not saying that now we know how to answer them or something, or now we have all the answers. But I also think there's been some progress made. But it's also worth noting that, philosophers are not unaware of this perception of philosophical problems. And this was also a crucial part of the earlier, when I mentioned earlier that the current English-speaking tradition emerged in the late 19th and early 20th century. So this tradition is what is typically just called analytic philosophy, and it's kind of what I'm trained in. And it basically started with, people have thought parts of these things before, but around this time, some people were really thinking, we've been arguing about these questions for 2,000 years, and we're still in vicious disagreement. And every time somebody has a whole new system and a whole new theory, and it was frustrating, right? and meanwhile, people were looking at scientific discoveries that were being made at the time, and we're very impressed with.
But only last 300 years,
Yeah, I'm talking about, again, I'm talking about the late 19th and early 20th century right now, what philosophers were thinking about. People were, looking at, for example, the theory of relativity and new things that were coming, and were very impressed with how, basically, of course there were many disputes remain and last a long time, but generally, things could be tested, and then, once the results were made, then there was no more discussion to be had about this particular thing, right? Things could be settled in an easier way. And some philosophers are like, why can't we do that? And so, I won't go into a too detailed now long explanation of how the history of philosophy went from there. But I bring this up because the modern tradition, philosophical tradition, is very much informed by this concern of philosophical questions as being unanswerable. And so it's tried to strive for, instead of, talking in vague, broad ways about these really big questions, try to break them down and take things piecemeal, or, go piece by piece and think, and try to make things precise, and then see what results we can get from that. And a particular kind of methodology was developed.
It sounds like applied philosophy.
A little bit. Now, in the very modern, in the 21st century, applied philosophy has taken on sort of a new meaning that's even more so. But in some sense, yes, it was still abstract. It was still, basically just involved thinking and writing. But there was a distinct methodology developed, often using thought experiments, for example. So this is all to say that there's been, we've tried to make some progress with this, these big problems of philosophical questions just being put to the side. And, I think it's probably a good thing that other disciplines, decide, okay, some questions are not for us to answer right now. And, because we can do all this stuff just knowing this. But I think it's also good for some other people to say, okay, well, now that let's spend some time thinking about these bigger questions, because sometimes, even a little bit of progress on these really big questions will lead a whole new framework that will make, be very useful for the applied fields as well. So,
in quantum physics, there was a huge discussion about this hidden parameters or not, and final consensus was about, they say okay, we don't even try to answer irrelevant questions or questions which we cannot answer in this framework. And they just said, no, this question is not for this framework, and we will not answer it.
I think, so this is very similar to what a 20th century German philosopher named Rudolf Carnap, his approach to philosophy. So, so I don't know if you're familiar with like the Vienna Circle. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, he was a key figure in this circle, and this was all, and I think, I mean, I don't know about the details on the physics side, but I know.
I think the idea was something about.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, it was in the realm of philosophy and more like logic than in applied sciences, but, you know, Carnap intended all of this to be useful in science as well. And I think it did influence some physicists. I don't know.
Yeah, I think the Bohr, Niels Bohr, probably Schrödinger and Heisenberg, they're all like from
impacted by this stuff.
I think that and especially this idea of duality. Then, like, what is a particle? Like, is it like probability wave, or is it like actually particle?
I see.
And then you answer it. It depends on the experiment. And in experiment, it's like behaves in a way you ask it a question by the experiment. So it's kind of this part. And also there was like, oh my God, I forget the English name of this quantum principle. Then you say that the two contradictive deep statements do not contradict to itself, but they kind of form one whole system.
I don't have enough background in physics to totally know, but I mean, I have heard a little bit about some of these things, and I know. I mean, there was a lot of interaction between the disciplines at this time, especially in in the German-speaking world and also in the English-speaking world. But yeah, so this occupied a crucial role. Positivism, had this in the early 20th century. This was the predominant paradigm, and it was very much based, especially the Carnapian version, was very based on this idea that, all sciences, you can't basically, a dispute or a theoretical dispute can only be settled once people have agreed on a shared, what he liked to call a linguistic framework, or, a set of definitions and inference rules, basically like a logic. And then from there, you could do your experiments, and only then could you sort of resolve your dispute. But then it could be resolved. There would be, no room for endless discussion, right?
At least if you agree that you're solving this problem, and if you agree like this will be the solution.
Exactly. This is exactly.
This is a key for solving.
This is exactly the thing. This is why the linguistic framework is so important. So you're sharing your terms are shared. So you agree on what the problem is, and you agree on what would settle the problem. This is all crucial for Carnap. Yes, exactly. And this was his idea, and but ultimately, but then of course there's a question, okay, so which framework is like the correct framework, or which framework, because earlier philosophers, Frege and Russell, for example, seemed to talk as though there was some universal logic that underlay all of natural language, that natural language represented some inner logic, and we just have to discover it, and then this is the universal framework. And Carnap didn't think so. He thought that, for most of his career, he thought that, basically, you could make any, you can use the rules of logic and construct any kind of linguistic framework you want, but you just have to agree on one to settle to do your theorizing in. And the question of which one to choose is not a question of right or wrong. It's a question of pragmatics. What's the which framework uses terms that are most useful to your theory. For example, a theory in which the relevant natural kinds include are determined by chemical formulas rather than whether they are items in my pants pocket. One of those frameworks is more useful for doing physics and chemistry. And so
depends on your goal,
Yes. So I don't know. The idea is that there's no correct framework. It's just that some frameworks might be better for your purposes for the particular dispute. And this is all fine and good, right? Or it seems. But actually, this paradigm, was in the 50s, starting in the 50s, and by the end of the 60s was basically gone. It was attacked on many sides, and it's no longer the paradigm in philosophy. And much of the remainder of the 20th century was about sort of figuring out how to maintain things we liked about this older tradition, the precision, the analytical reasoning, and focus on logic, without being committed to some of these more radical claims that the positivists believed in and Carnap believed in, that were no longer seen as tenable. And I don't know how the development went in science. I mean, whether there was a post-positivist views, but this is what philosophy of science has been doing for the past 50 years, discussing.
But I want to ask you the follow-up question about so. Usually people say like that, for example, mathematics becomes so complex that the questions they are trying to ask and answer now are more philosophical rather like practical or something. So do you have like in your study, do you have like lots of mathematical classes, or for example, do they try to merge at some point or not really yet?
Yes. Well, it really depends. It's up to you. I mean, and what you want to focus on. So I took one straight logic course in philosophy, and usually almost all bachelor's philosophy majors must take at least one logic course at most universities in the United States. And this was a strict, it was a formal logic course. I learned about predicate logic, sentential logic, doing proofs, truth tables, stuff like that.
Calculus and stuff?
Well, this would be, this would not be as required by the philosophy department. I mean, I did take math classes. I took a few through I took single variable calculus, 2 single variable calculus courses, and a linear algebra course. I stopped after that, but that just depends on the university, because at most universities in America, I think compared to other parts of the world, you have more freedom to choose. I mean, your major imposes some requirements, but you don't have to pick right away, and you have a lot more freedom even at the beginning of your studies to take, elective courses. I only had to, my university only required one. It only required, the general university requirements only required one math course. I ended up taking 3 just because I wanted to. And then the philosophy major, it required one logic course, and I took that.
And how do you find your mathematical courses? Like, how do you like, for example, linear algebra?
Linear algebra I liked. I mean, it's been, it's been 3 years now or whatever. But from what I remember, yeah, I mean, I liked it. I mean, somewhat. I mean, I wish I had more time to take some of the more advanced math courses. But now I realize the ones I'm really interested in, I actually probably didn't need this calculus and stuff, background stuff, because it probably wouldn't be analysis and stuff I would be taking. It probably wouldn't be analysis that I would be taking if I had continued in math, or that I would be really interested in. It probably really the only math I'm really interested in now that is really might be pertinent to my studies would be set theory.
Set theory, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So also very close to logic. So it's set theory and logic are really the only areas that are mathematical that are directly historically related to philosophy. The other stuff by philosophical is applied.
Sure.
Maybe some things maybe examples from number theory and examples from this can be useful in a philosophical argument, but. Yeah, so philosophers, when they're interested in particular sciences, they're usually interested in the foundations of them. For example, in physics also, there's interest in the foundations of physics in philosophy. It's called philosophy of physics, philosophy of biology. There are questions. But, if I wanted to be a logician, if I want, in say my future graduate studies, if I really want to focus on logic and set theory and stuff like that, then of course I would need to demonstrate that I have a lot of background in this stuff.
All right, I see.
And maybe if I had written I probably would have taken more courses in that in undergrad too. I do hope to take some more, but I don't, just to have some more of that background for the stuff I plan to do. But I don't think it's going to be my main area, for example. So I was okay with just one logic course for undergrad, and then
So now to more interesting and sparkling part.
Okay.
How you end up in Georgia and this interesting study of yours about wines?
Yes. So it's a funny story.
But sober story.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So we have to skip a few years so I told you I first went to the small liberal arts college, Simon's Rock, and I could have stayed there for 4 years and gotten my BA from there. But for several reasons, mostly because it was just a very small school and the philosophy department only had 2 professors. I was not. I needed more academic resources. I was running out of courses to take, and I wanted to go to a bigger university that had more philosophy courses and just everything. And so in my second year, I did a bunch of transfer applications, and I was very lucky and got into Harvard. So I transferred there, and then I finished my degree there. I spent 2 years there. So I moved much back closer to home because Harvard is, in Cambridge, which is next to Boston, and Arlington itself is next to Cambridge.
Not sure that was the main motivation, right?
Yeah. What?
Not sure that was the main motivation.
No. In fact, I spent 1 year actually literally at home the first year because it was COVID. It was all on Zoom.
Oh, yeah.
My first year at Harvard. So I actually only spent 1 year actually at Harvard. But anyway. But yes, to Georgia and to wine. So fast forward to last year, my senior year. I know I want to go to graduate school in philosophy eventually, but I don't want to go straight away because I've just had COVID. There's just been COVID, Zoom University. It's been 4 years of college. And, with a PhD, I'm looking at least 5 more years, often 6 or 7. Mm-hmm. And, I had a feeling I would get burned out if I just went straight to that. And I thought, most people, and I was 20, and I was like, most people my age are like exploring their lives and whatever, and I just think some time away from the academy would be good for me and help me be more prepared for.
So you want to take a pause?
Yeah. I want to step away from academic philosophy, right? Before I go back and do that for at least 5 more years. I wanted to do something more than just get a job or something, because I have plenty of my life to do that. Ideally, I'd be able to travel and do something interesting. The problem is that requires money. And so thankfully, luckily for me, Harvard has several fellowships that you can apply for after your senior year to do some kind of travel, and the travel doesn't necessarily need to be for strictly research or academic purposes per se. You don't need to write a research paper at the end of it. You need to do some project and show them that what you're doing is beneficial for yourself or is
it's like self-development.
Yes,
grant?
or something
really?
like this. Yeah. So it can't just be anything, and they're very competitive because of course everybody wants to do this, but. It doesn't need to be, it can involve research, but they often encourage you oh no, there are many fellowships for research. We want some old guy who went to Harvard many years ago and died and left some money, wanted to, fresh graduates to be able to do something different.
Really? That's this kind of motivation, really?
Yeah, so this is what, there are only a few of these, but I was like, well,
how it's called?
Oh, well, the general group of them was called the Postgraduate Traveling Fellowships. And each one, but you have just applied for them and then you got considered for various ones. So they each had, they all had their own separate names of the man who left the money. And often each one had restrictions, this one is only for Europe, or this one is to learn about some topic. So it's really
kind of wheel.
Yeah. So I was like, well, okay, this sounds like a great way to do something. Now I have to figure out what I would want to do before I apply. And I'd had a few things in mind. And also I was considering other things. For example, at the same time, I was also applying to the Peace Corps. Do you know?
I see, yeah.
And Peace Corps is in Georgia. And and that's actually how Georgia first entered my mind. I saw they had a posting in Georgia, and I was like, oh, let me look this up. And this is how first Georgia came to mind. I was like, oh, this is interesting. First of all, it was interesting to me because I mentioned I had lived in Tajikistan as a kid for 1 year. That was a very sort of influential experience for me, just because most Americans have never heard of this country and don't know where it is. And I lived in this place, and this made me for the rest of my life very interested in
exotic places.
Well, especially I'd gotten exposure. I'd been in India before, but now I was very interested in basically the post-Soviet world. And also it happens to be a country that's very mountainous and has, a history with many ethnic groups. Mm-hmm. So similar, and as being in the middle of many different countries as well. And so for several of these reasons, I was like, Georgia, this is kind of interesting. And then I looked up about the Georgian language, and I saw that the Caucasus has the 3 indigenous language families that neither of them are part of a larger family, and none of them are related to each other, and they all have linguistically very interesting features. By this time, I had taken a few linguistics courses and was interested in that as well. And so I was like, wow, this place is just kind of calling my name. What is, I don't know what exactly I'll do, but there's something here. Okay, so what's my project going to be? Why should I convince these people to pay for me to go live in Georgia for a year? And at first I thought about something related to languages, something related to hiking. I thought about these, but they didn't. I tried looking into it. I didn't. One was too academic.
Okay.
Yeah, or like it was. I couldn't figure out how to make it into a good sounding proposal. So I was like, okay, I'm looking for something different from my studies, but not too different. And like, I don't know. And then it so happened that my dad found a Georgian wine at a store,
okay.
And he brought it home, and then we were having having wine with dinner, and I was like, it was like, wine. I never,
It's so nice.
It's funny because I literally like knew nothing about. I didn't drink much and because in the States, I mean the age. Yes, and I only turned 21 while I was here, so like a few months ago. So I mean, of course, like everybody, I had drunk a little bit at home and with friends and stuff, but like I wasn't drinking all the time. I couldn't go to bars and stuff. I didn't have a fake ID or anything like that. So
Is it like really so common?
I mean, I'm not the best person to ask because my friends didn't do it and stuff. But I mean, it was pretty common in college to at least know somebody who had one or something. I mean, but these people also get busted all the time, So like it's I never wanted booze that badly, so I never But but it is kind of common. Yes, I mean, I knew people who had them and used them all the time, and it was pretty.
And
easy.
it's not so illegal that it brings you like really big consequences or.
I don't know. I mean, it depends also because it depends also if it's a big difference between just buying it for yourself.
And selling it,
or selling it, or giving it to younger
okay.
people. And same thing. It's also illegal to buy. If you're actually old enough, but you buy it and then give it to minors or whatever. So there are all these laws, and it depends. I don't think it's a huge thing, but I don't know exactly. It's also illegal even before you buy anything to try to use a fake ID, and then if they say that's fake, that's at least a fine or something. I don't know exactly, but anyway, so
So you find this Georgian wine and say like probably during the conversation with the father. You brainstormed this idea or not really?
Basically, yeah. I was like, huh. He was like, it was almost started as like a joke. It was like, you could do something about Georgian wine, Oliver. And I was like, yeah, I guess I could. And I was like, what? And at this time, because I also was kind of like, wow, what is this fellowship like? You can just do anything. So I was looking for examples of what other people had done. So I'll give you some examples for comparison. Someone, one I heard from a previous year was a vegetarian. Like me, I'm actually also vegetarian, but some woman was a vegetarian and used this fellowship to go work, like to learn about beef farming in some remote country. I don't know. Somebody else went to Scotland to Scotland and to Kazakhstan, I think, to learn about traditional falconing. So like, totally, weird things, and like, that only something like this could allow you to, something like this could allow you to do. So I was like, okay, well,
It's 1 year fellowship or
yes,
it's shorter?
Yeah. I mean, there were some that were shorter, but this one I was interested in was for 1 year. I mean, they just give you a flat amount of money and then it's one for year. It varied much. Usually it was about $20,000 or $25,000 they would give you, and this was for 1 year. So obviously, some places that goes farther than others.
Oh, sorry.
No worries. And yeah, so I was like, okay, Georgian wine. This sounds like, given these projects, the falconing, the beef farm, going to Georgia to learn about wine. I mean, this seems like it could work, right?
Yeah.
And so I did some research a little bit about Krevri and, traditional winemaking and this stuff. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to go and I'll try to live with a winemaker and maybe they can teach me and I can see what it's like. And this was my idea. And I should say, the first fellowships I applied for, the due dates were in early February, like 2 weeks before the Russian invasion started. So, in America, people have no idea how Americans have a tendency to assume that anywhere else is unsafe. So it was like, as soon as that happens, they hear like, oh, like there's a war in Russia and Ukraine going on. Like, is Georgia safe? And is Georgia,
Actually, we have the same ideas here. Like in Georgia, we was like freaking out, and like, there was people who seriously several friends of mine who they were very patriotic. They are still, but there was like, should we probably go before Russia invade us? And maybe I should bring my family somewhere safer. And they're thinking all this stuff. Because if you compare I think Russia bigger than Georgia like 50 times by population.
Yeah.
So and like 3 times bigger than Ukraine probably. Oh. So if
it's a big difference,
it's a big difference, and we have like experience with the previous war in 2008, and it was like 3 day. In 3 days there was no any will to fight anymore because there was no reason. I mean,
I understand. So fair enough. Nonetheless,
I could imagine that if you started asking the question like, oh, is German safe? Now
this is.
But Georgia, it's like small enough to be concerned.
Yes, I understand. But Americans do tend to get way too like seem to think anywhere outside of Western Europe and North America is like a war zone or something. Anyway, that's another story. But anyway, so this first round of fellowships I applied for, I did not get. Back in April, they just said, "Sorry, we didn't accept you." But I got randomly lucky, and then it turned out that there was a very similar such fellowship that was exclusive to the house I lived in, so the dorm house. So Harvard this is not like every university, but Harvard has these like big dorms that are called houses. Each one has a few hundred people in it, and you live in the same like and it's like a big building with a courtyard and its own dining hall, and and they have events, and there are also graduate students who tutor students and stuff that live there, and so it's a real community. And there's also usually a faculty couple in residence, and so like it's each house is like its own community, and they each have their own like secrets and stuff like this. Sure. So
like Hogwarts.
A little bit, yeah, exactly. It's kind of, I mean, like the Harvard's Annenberg Hall. It's like one of the biggest dining hall at Harvard. That's for first year students. Is like either. I forget if the Harry Potter movie like dining hall was filmed in there or it was based on it or something like that. So if you go in there, it feels like Hogwarts. Anyway.
Okay, for us it feels like Hogwarts also because we do not have such culture of huge like tradition of having this campus which has each of them having its own traditions and stuff.
And it's also just the architecture, of course, of Harvard. Sure. But anyway, so.
But also this kind of small grants and financial like fellowships. I heard first time about this, and it's like extremely nice idea, appealing for my perspective. Yeah.
No, well, it's as far as I know, they only exist, unfortunately, at places like Harvard, where you just have all these alumni who donate huge amounts of money.
No, I can imagine. Like for example, I'm living in some in some places, and then I say, okay, now I'm millionaire or billionaire even, and now I say like when I was student, someone helped me, so let's give these guys like 50K. They have fun and they.
It's like this, or often when these people die, they leave a portion of their estate to fund these fellowships for 10 years or something like this. And then people who go on them, maybe years then give back to it.
Sure, because they remember how fun it was.
Yes. So
after you founding the philosophical school and become like extremely rich, you also donate some portion of your wealth, right?
I wish, the philosophical school, It just rakes in money. No. But anyway, so these first round of fellowships I got rejected from, but then by surprise, I get an email one day that I've been nominated for one fellowship that is only a secret and only exclusive to my dorm, my house.
Oh, okay.
I won't say it just in case because it's supposed to be secret. I don't. It doesn't matter. But anyway,
No.
I will. And it turns out it's like exactly the same. It's almost the same amount of money, maybe even a little bit more. And it's like the exact same purpose as these other fellowships I applied for. And all I had to do, and I had 1 week to write a proposal.
But they don't care about safety.
I guess they trusted me. I mean, I don't know if
Safety about
Yeah, exactly. No. I mean, I don't know that that's why I got rejected from the first one. It could just be that there was a better project available and blah blah blah. But anyway, so
maybe they say that we don't want to be responsible for this
exactly.
guy.
But
let's tell him that it's a secret, some financial support.
Yes, exactly. So, but the big difference this time was that, the people looking for the House specific fellowship, the people looking at it were people who knew me personally because they were the board was like the faculty in residence and some of the graduate the PhD students who lived there and were, like I said, who are tutors. So, I wrote a proposal in 1 week and then I made it to the interview stage and then they were interviewing me and they knew me. So this must have played a role. I mean, of course, I think they had to, in order to even be nominated, they had to know you. But I don't know. Anyway, so this just fell into my lap out of nowhere after I was almost ready to give up on this idea.
Very nice.
And then I got it, and I was like, okay, I guess I'm going to Georgia.
And what's exactly you propose to just learn how we make the wine, how to drink the wine, how to be like. So
it started one way, and it's been changing over time since I've actually come here. But at the beginning, the proposal was like, okay, so first of all, I'm interested in how what's the story of this country that's the birthplace of wine, and why don't we Americans know about it, and how do these traditional methods work and whatever, and I also was like emphasizing the importance to me of learning Georgian because of my interest in studying at least. Okay. I mean, I know in 1 year I wouldn't be able that good at it, but that I could study it and gain some competence and learn about the language at least, even if I couldn't be like a good speaker of it. I could learn a lot about how it works and its history, and this stuff would be just personally interesting to me. And I was also from the beginning interested in identity. Because I knew that, I hope I don't say anything that will get me canceled or something, but I think the Georgian people occupy a very interesting place as the Caucasus broadly as well, just as a country as a region that has been a region of interest to so many much bigger powers in the history. I mean, Russians, Turks of various kinds, Persians, and other kinds of Europeans, and it's just been at the center of many different conflicts. Yes, but but at the same time, it has its own people, which are of many, many different sorts. I mean, and even of course, I think you can tell with how many people have a very strong identify strongly with the region of Georgia they are from. Not just they are Georgian, they are Imeretian, or they are whatever. And it shows that the modern Georgian identity was basically made out of many different smaller identities. This stuff is also kind of philosophically interesting because it's like what is identity? How does ethnicity work? It's the Caucasus shows just how complicated it is, I think.
So your study also includes this?
Well, yes.
It's not quite study, but
yes. I was interested in this, and I thought maybe, and to me, there's also something connected to wine about this. And it seemed like...
Really?
Yes.
How so?
It's vague and not direct, but I was thinking for Georgian and Georgians, as just like in many other wine regions, it's not just something you drink. It is what our grandfathers did. It is what we did. It is a big part of who your people and who you are.
You just don't drink it. You don't drink it only to joy. You drink it because you need, because it's like part of you.
Yeah. It is, we are Georgians. We make wine. We drink wine, right?
Okay, I see.
And I'm from Imereti, and in Imereti, these are our grapes. We grow these grapes, and it was very interesting. For example, I went once when I visited one Emiratian winemaker, just for example. I overheard a winemaker talking about another. Oh, why is this winemaker growing Tavqueri and Chinuri? These are from Kartli. We are Emirati. We have our own grapes, for example. And it was like, if you are in Emirati, why are you growing these grapes or something? Yeah. So people identify even with the grapes, right? and clearly there is some connection to the part, Georgian identity, but also the regional identity. Wine plays this role. I think. And so that was interesting, just sort of as an ethnographic or anthropological.
There is a man in this university, Professor Salkikwidze.
Okay.
I think he's an ethnobiologist.
Ethnobiologist.
Yes,
Okay.
and what they try to do, I'm not quite familiar with his study because he promised to tell more details in our next episode.
Okay.
not next, but next time
He's
we're
coming
meeting.
on.
Like maybe in several months or something. I don't know. But he said something that, if I'm not mistaken, so he said like lots of culture have this worshipping the plants and some big trees, and probably worshipping also the stags.
Like deer?
Yeah, like deer, because it's also seasonical. So the tree is like has this meaning of life because it's like periodical. It grows, it dies, it grows, regrows and dies. And also stag with his horns, or does it call horns?
Yeah, or antlers. Yeah.
Antlers, yeah. They're also kind of changing each year. And he said they have this strong connection, usually in a lot of culture. But he said like in Georgia somehow these cults transform under Christianity probably. Well, they were before also.
Yeah.
Under Christianity they transform into the wine cult.
Yeah.
And so this is kind of pagan adopted to the...
Yeah, I mean, just look at Nino's cross, right?
Yes.
With the vines. I mean,
Yeah.
when I learned that, I was like, oh, wine really is everywhere in Georgia. Oh my goodness. Yeah, no, I mean, that's so fascinating, right? Yeah, like, and this is something I've, now that I'm here, become more interested in this stuff about, like, older pre-Christian traditions and other minority groups in Georgia and how they relate to the wine culture, and also how they relate to sort of the modern, like sort of mainstream Georgian identity, and how do minority identities that still are very Georgianized but in some way different, maybe, how they fit in, and if possible, how this connects to wine. So yeah.
Do you have some answers or like hints to answer, or just broad observations? You can share the broad observations, and we will be interested in probably.
Well,
at least I and
hope well,
my
I haven't focused on this, I mean, a ton yet, but I mean, one thing that's been interesting for me personally, and I want to learn a little bit more about. It's not directly related to wine, but I can kind of do whatever I want. So it's is about Jewish history in Georgia and the Georgian Jews, because I'm Jewish personally. But I'm an Ashkenazi Jew, so my lineage is separate from the Jews who came to Georgia. And yeah, I mean, they have a very interesting history here because. I mean, many of them, the community is now very small because most of them have gone to Israel, as far as I know. But
there were villages there.
But there's and a lot of the history is preserved, unlike in many other places, of course. And of course, compared to many other places, I mean, Jews were relatively safe and treated well here, and that's great. But I still wonder, what is it like to be Jewish in a country that is like a huge part of its identity is its version of Orthodox Christianity, of course. And how does that affect your relationship to the Georgian? I mean, being Georgian, do you feel fully Georgian? You speak Georgian, of course, and whatever. And so, for example, I hope to visit, one of the villages that had a big Jewish community and still has a synagogue outside of Tbilisi is Oni in Racha. Because I've heard that in the synagogue there, it's very cool. They have prayer books that are the prayers are in Hebrew, but they have it in Hebrew, and they also have it transliterated into Georgian script, which is not surprising. I mean, in America we also have translated but also transliterated prayers for people who can't read Hebrew but want to say the prayers. But I think that would just be really cool to learn about the transcription choices and stuff. But
I have a friend of mine. There were like lots of programs, and probably they are still. Then if you have the roots, like in Israeli roots or something like this, you can travel there as like part of holidays, and then they try to assimilate you or something.
Okay. Oh, like is it Birthright you're talking about? Huh? Birthright Israel. It's a program.
Yeah, something like this.
It's a little bit like it. Not exactly, but
it was not like the whole assimilation, full-scale assimilation program, but I think it was the first step or something.
Yeah. Okay.
And a part of the application was. The guy says like usually he identified himself as a Jew, but also like Georgian.
Yeah, Georgian.
And in
Jew,
application, in order to participate in this program, he need to put that he was Jew or he is Jew, but he put like the Georgia. Yeah. He has a strong protest, and he don't want to put this because he said, no, I feel myself as Georgian. Like I have Jewish roots, but I'm Georgian. He said, like finally. He settled on this, and it was like very surprising. And I was like, "Oh, really?" It was just an application. It's just signed in paper, right? You can write down something and just come back, right? It's not like you're converting in the religious way. But he was like really.
Yeah, well, it's very interesting. I mean, there are a couple of things one could think about in this example. One is, of course, like Georgia, like in many modern countries, America and Europe where there are Jews, a lot of us, including me, are very secular in terms of our religious beliefs. I'm not religious at all, actually, but I personally, it's very strong.
So no Shabbat. So you're working on Saturdays?
Well, sometimes I try to take a break, but just to have a rest day. But you understand what I mean. I don't like have strong religious beliefs, but I still like to maintain a lot of just cultural traditions because I very strongly identify and think of Judaism more as my ethnicity. But navigating that is complex. But the American Jewish story is for another time. But so I think a lot of the most Georgian Jews who are in Georgia are in Tbilisi, and a lot of them are quite secular and assimilated. So that could be part of it. But also it's a thing about Israel because, there's a lot of controversies that could start right now. But one thing that's relevant here is like the fact that Israel has always sought to make lean into this idea of Jews as an ethnicity, but make it into like a national identity as well, and leaving behind an old nationality, and make this like melting pot of different cultures that are all unified by Judaism, and then make this new Israeli nationality that has a mix. When you think about Israeli food, for example, it's a mix of Middle Eastern foods, falafel, hummus, whatever, and Ashkenazi Jewish foods, for example, which are European versions of European foods. So you get this mix, right? Cultural mix. But with some success, they've made this new Israeli Jewish identity that's its own new identity made out of. But to be part of it, I guess sometimes you have to leave behind. You can bring in your foods and your traditions, and look at this Georgian Jewish food. But there's some interest in you are part. They might make it so that you have to choose, and that I don't agree with that. I think I'm not a big fan of this whole. This is a flaw of the whole idea of the nation state, and
And so now your study is on a stage of like in the middle, and what was the most surprising things like you can recall now?
Okay.
Like when you come here from US.
Related to wine or
related to anything, like social aspects, like I don't know, living here, but I don't know, maybe whatever. I'll
start with one wine thing and one like non-wine thing, let's say. So one thing that was very interesting to learn about, I ended up focusing mostly on in the natural wine tradition here because it is popular here, and it is really the only part of the wine world here where new things are happening. On the other hand, there the way I see it, there are like three kinds of wine here. There's the natural wine world. There is the like big factory wine, Kinsmarauli, big Franchkara factory, this kind of thing that is just, it's the easiest wine to find in other countries and whatever. And sometimes it's okay, bad, sometimes it's good, whatever. But it's just kind of the same. There's nothing new. It's been kind of the same thing as far as I can tell. And then there's the, like house wine or family wine you can buy from the old woman selling vegetables in the bazaar for 5 or 10 lari in a plastic bottle. You're
going this extreme?
Well, it's an interesting part of this world, right? But I'm saying those last two, the house with the family wine.
No, but you're brave enough to try it.
Oh
actually,
yes.
Okay.
Oh yeah. I think if it's a great way if you want to have wine at home for friends and stuff. Without like having to break the bank all the time. Some you can find very good wine there, especially if you go and it's some woman from Cajeti who's brought her, whatever, or anywhere really. But there are secret spots that have the good place. Yeah, of course.
And you already learned them.
Yeah. Well, I don't buy from there that often mostly because I don't. When your project is about wine, you end up going to wine tastings and drinking a lot. So I try not to keep alcohol at home also because I'm already going to. So I try to only drink when it is like a social thing or. Otherwise, it's just it would be too much.
Very wise from you. Yeah.
But I have tried it, of course, sometimes.
You have
and at festivals and stuff like this. And
self-discipline is.
Yes, I mean most of it is nothing special, but it can be very good just to have at home or whatever for friends. But anyway. These two, the family wine and the big factory wine, it is fine, whatever, but it's not really changing that much. So I focused on natural wine. This is all to say I've been largely focusing on natural wine and visiting because they're small winemakers. They're more interested in having visitors and getting their word out there, and I can be that for them, and they're more willing to, in a factory there's not much for me to go, like it's just okay, here's the machine and whatever. It's cool to go to a small place and here are my workers and we're picking, and for harvest I actually even helped out and I picked grapes and whatever, worked in the hot sun and got sunburned and then whatever, and then we would have a supra in the evening. But
I mean it's a different experience, totally different experience. And probably
and it's cool, and then you get and you get to see their process about so this wine will go, so first it will be in this Kvevri for 3 months with 30% skin contact or whatever, and then it will go here, and you will learn about the process and whatever. And anyway, during the harvest I visited several wineries like this, often helping out with the harvest and sleeping there, if they had extra room or whatever, and it was fun. What I was surprised by, one thing I was really surprised by was learning about how many of these guys, like, in addition to there being this whole small artisanal winemaking scene, how many of them actually like entered the wine world by accident or like didn't have any background in it, or I assumed, of course, like everybody's grandfather in Georgia made wine or whatever, but it's not like most of them didn't come from a big family of winemakers, especially.
It's like cooking for yourself. Making wine. Your wine is like I don't know, your mom baking the cake.
Of course, everybody's father and grandfather did it, but most of them did not come from big families of like special winemakers. But some person I know was a sculptor by training, another was in another field, but then either because they accidentally inherited some vineyards or they just decided they wanted to try something new, they just broke into winemaking and tried something new. And so that was very surprising, and it was kind of cool. And it also means that a lot of these natural, they're quite young. The Soviet era generation is largely, I think, not the one making doing this natural wine stuff now. They're mostly like, there are exceptions, of course, but a lot of them, they grew up with the industrial wine, basically. So it's I didn't expect this. I was like, okay, the people using the Kvevri and doing these,
What do you call like Soviet generation? I mean,
oh well, it's okay. Yes, it's rough.
I'm just curious.
When I came, I was expecting all these small. I was expecting I would go find some small, like an old man in
like me.
No, like older. Like I was expecting
50s, 60s, or how?
I don't know. I mean, at least 50s or 60s. I guess I don't know. I mean, it was just. It was just my imagination.
I'm curious.
I was imagining like these old men. They were I imagined like they were the ones who had the traditions, and then I would follow him around taking notes while he. Use traditional techniques or whatever. And But what I came to find is, yes, some of the big natural winemakers are in their 40s or whatever, but most of them are not that much older than that. Most of them are in their 30s, or sometimes they're even quite young ones. And this was really cool because they're doing. It's using old stuff like it's using old techniques and materials, but it's also minimal industrial intervention, but it's also it's also innovation. It's also trying out new techniques because after all, at the end of the day, wine can be natural and it's a natural product and whatever, but it also has to taste good. And 100 years ago, a lot of the homemade wine was just for friends and for family. So, but it's cool. The result is you get a lot of experimentation, and you don't see people on other places in the world using these older Georgian techniques in their winemaking. So it's neat. Anyway, so the thing I was surprised about was that
the age of this
the
people.
age, and that they came from all different kinds of backgrounds. That was cool.
And what is average age from your perspective? 30, 40?
Hard to tell.
50?
Maybe 30. There are people who are quite young. Yeah, maybe 30s. Yeah, somewhere in the 30s. I don't know.
Okay.
It would be better.
I just curious about your perspective.
No worries. Sorry.
So the fun thing is my name, Juanshер, is not quite Juanshер. It's not quite common in Georgia.
Oh yeah.
So you obviously.
Yeah, I figured it out.
Yeah. And the fun thing, one of my student, she was she put somewhere actually I expected you to be older. Then I chose this course. And I was, but back then I was 30 years old.
Yeah.
And somehow she said Juanshер could not be young. And then she looked at me and said are you Juansher? What?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
No.
So you
to be fair, I think every name after Georgi, Dato, Levan, and Nika and Mam, it drops after the top 5 or 10. Then everyone is uncommon. I think it's true. But anyway, they're all good names. I like Georgian names a lot, actually. Anyway.
So things surprising not in wines.
Yes. Well, one thing that was interesting here that's actually is figuring out. And this probably is not unique to Georgia, I think, but it was my first time really experiencing this for myself. It was figuring out where the best place is to buy things was very interesting. And let me explain. So coming from America, we're sort of used to having a big store for every category we want. We go to one store to get all our food, and one store to get all of our medicine and groceries, and they're all it depends. In New York City,
and if you want to build something, you go to Home Depot. Right?
Yes, or whatever. We're most suburban and rural America is used to it this way, and and then there's also Walmart. Whatever. We're kind of used to this. Obviously, yeah. In big cities it varies, but still there are these chains and whatever. Figuring out where even just for groceries. I think to figure out where to go, it's all different kinds of places. For me, okay, so this one lady at Station Square is the best for walnuts, and then someone else, and it's just it takes a long time, and you learn which ladies close to you have the best stuff for produce,
and who is also how to say honest in the waiting things.
Yes. Who strips you up, and then spices are best from this Ramaz and whatever, and then okay, this type of good I can only find at Carrefour, so I must go there. It would be cheaper if I could go here, but they don't have this store available, so I have to go to Spar and whatever. And I've been thinking a lot about the stores because it also reflects something very nice. So can I tell a short story? Yeah. So when I first came to Georgia, I needed to buy a power plug adapter because the American plug is different. So I needed an adapter. And I asked my friend, I had already met an American guy who had lived here for a few years, and I was like, where can I buy this? And he said, you should go to one of these hardware stores, and there's one on Amarleba Street, which was close to where I lived at the time. He said, you should go to this one. And I was like, okay, what's it called? He's like, there's no name. It's just a store.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just you'll see it. You go. It's right at the.
By smell.
It's on this, there's a store on this corner, and you'll see sinks and stuff, and you just know it's this hardware store, and you go in.
Okay.
And I was like, Really? Oh, and like I knew of course there would be small stores and it wouldn't be on Google Maps or something, obviously, you know. But it never occurred to me like it's not gonna have like you know. Okay. And it was very interesting. And then I went there, and of course it was fine. Whatever. I bought the adapter, but you know, it got me thinking. It's like, in America, we have this American dream, and everything is about, like, when you're starting a business, it's always about, you're not just selling them stuff, you're selling a brand and a product. Home Depot, whatever, you're selling a brand. And your goal is always to open bigger stores, even the small mom and pop shops or whatever, like, you know, you know, it's this idea that you have a brand and you have a name and people recognize you and then they come. And like, you know, except for like the big chains or whatever, like this is not here. It's actually really nice to not have this thing here. Like, it's just whoever's store, and you know that this guy sells these things, and you know this woman has really good coriander because it's from her garden or whatever, and you know. It's kind of, it's like, you know, maybe, you know, it's like, this is what, like, maybe it used to be like, this is what it used to be like in most of the world before everything was so industrialized. So, you know the story about how, like, commercials changed in, like, in, like, the 50s and 60s, and especially in America, but I think really the whole world followed.
Because of radio or something?
No, like with how... so you know the Marlboro Man in like American cigarette commercials? No?
Yeah, more or less.
Like, you know, like this cowboy and like,
yes.
you know,
yeah.
whatever. So here's an example of how, you know, because back in like the 40s and 50s, like the way commercials were is like, they would just tell you what was good about the product and why you should buy it. It's like, I love smoking Marlboro because, you know, it's cheap and it, you know, whatever. I don't know. And... Right. Well, no, but they would just give you information. It was sort of rational. But then they realized, no, this is not this is boring. Who wants to listen to an old man talk? Whatever. No, what we got to do is show the man with a nice car and beautiful women around him smoking a cigarette. And that sells, right? They sell you an image, a story.
Okay, I see.
And I think it's the same with the store brands, like in the names. You know, everything is selling you a name or an image. It's this very like hyper industrialized, like hyper capitalized, like way of marketing. And so for me, when I realized this, I was like, you know, Dato at the hardware store never have a name. Keep your store. I just, you know. The sign just has what you sell. It's like
be small and bear survive.
No, it doesn't have to be a bear survival. But you know, it was so nice to be like, you know, there's no bullshit. You just tell me what you have to sell, and the prices, and I know what I'm getting. You know, and that's it. You know, and the same with the coriander and whatever. You know,
I have like with coriander. I have also like this. The special woman for the spices, because I like to make ajuka. You know ajuka, probably.
Yes.
So I like to make it myself during the season, and then I go there and I need to buy a bunch of it. And if you go to this just shop, it's like 100 grams for I don't know $5 or something. Yes. It's very expensive. So I came to her and said like, okay, what's the price for this one? And she said like, I don't know, like $2 for the small glass or whatever. She measured it in glasses. And then I asked like, okay, what about kilo? And she said like, kilo? I said, yes. She's like, I don't know, it will be expensive. And I said, okay, give me the price. She said, I don't know. Kilo I will give you in 10 lari. And she said, if you want cheaper, I could probably. I said, no.
10 lari is very good.
It's okay.
Yes. It's like, please, you should sell more. Yeah.
It's $3 or something.
No, I love it. It's like, it's so nice that like, not, you know.
The thing is, like, I bought it. It was so cheap that I bought it like in a quantities like I have now. Like, it was 2 seasons of ajuka, and I still have this coriander. But yeah, it's fun.
Yeah. Well, something like this happens with wine tastings too, because you know, like you could tell, like there's not this fully business attitude about everything all the time. So like a problem I've noticed at a lot of wine tastings and other similar events is like they only make you pay at the end, and then people are drunk, of course, and then they forget to pay, and there's nobody to check to make sure, and like most people do pay still, but like every time a few people I think get away with paying at a lot of these wine bars that are less like, you know, developed and whatever.
I see.
And you know, a lot of people are like, dude, like, what are you doing? How are you going to succeed if you're like this? This would be like the American approach. And it's kind of true. Like, I want to see more money in Georgia and be a more successful country. But also, I'd really like that there's this, not just for me, I mean, I always pay, but, you know, like, that this is the attitude of like...
Of challenge and like, you gain something. Yeah,
or like that it's chill, you know, and it's not, you know, not everything is business, and you're not always like fighting with somebody, you know, it's not always like a competition, and like, I hope this attitude doesn't change. So even if Georgia becomes a more successful country, I don't want this to change. Yeah.
Okay, I see. I experienced the same attitude in Italy somehow. In Rome, it was like extremely bad experience. Like, they was really strict. They were like, they ask you ID, and like, not ID, they say like, no, they ask you passport. I said, maybe ID, and she said, no, I need your passport. And she was like really rude.
Yes.
Like, I mean, formally polite in a rude way. I don't know how to explain.
Yeah.
And in Sicily, like, it's like
Sicily,
Sicily. It was like, the guy was so relaxed. I begging him like, take the money like one day before, because in advance, because I said like, I will be in hurry. We're going to different city. I'm coming back. Then I need to be in the airport.
Yes, rather just pay now.
Yeah, I won't pay now. And there was a football. And he said, no. Tomorrow.
It's
and I said like, I might be like, I will be in hurry. And he said, no problem. No. And I said, it's
you want the money? Yeah.
I asked him yesterday, and he said, it's not a problem. And also it was like funny because before that, like, first day I check in, and then I need to check out and come back in one day because I were in different city. And I asked him like, could I play? I mean, I told him this. I explained somehow with my English, and then I said like, could I left my luggage? And he said like, okay, so you coming back? Then I will put your luggage in the room, but don't clean it. Is it okay? He asked. Like, I don't change the sheets.
Okay.
I said, okay. He said, all right. And then I think, okay, he's like, lock the room. It's not working. And like, will he charge me? I mean, like, maybe I'm begging.
You're buying a room.
Yeah, maybe I bought like one additional night. But it seems no. He just said, okay, why bother to clean it and like
yes.
Put your stuff. I don't care. Like, not a problem.
I love that.
And also, like, he don't ask me to pay like first day and say like, maybe I will not come back. He said, I have your luggage. It's okay.
Yeah.
And I like this also, like this attitude of like not being too harsh.
Yeah.
I mean, and you kind of feel like even if you, for some, I don't know, reason you don't pay, it will not be like huge deal with police. You will be able to come back and pay after or something like this.
Yes.
And in Rome, no way. In Sicily,
it's the problem. In touristy places, then of course they realize they can make way more money if they do this, and then they change it. But as soon as you leave that and get to the rest of the country, and or like Sicily in this case, I guess, because I think fundamentally the Sicilian and Italian, there's a lot of continuity with Georgian culture here. I mean, general like Mediterranean, like chill, Southern Europe, chill lifestyle.
My friend of my GMT time, she called like Georgian Navy time.
Oh yes. I've heard this before. Yes. Georgian maybe time.
Yeah, but it's okay. And also this funny word we have like Zeg. You're probably familiar. It's the day after tomorrow.
Oh right, yes, I didn't know that.
It's so used in Georgian language that we have like short name for the day after tomorrow. If you want to like delay something like really in a huge way, you say Zeg, and it usually means like probably never.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, it's been interesting learning this when trying to plan visits to wineries, because a lot of people, they like to promise like everything's like, I just ask, so I met you at this at your tasting and it was very nice and I'd be very interested to learn more. Maybe could I visit your winery one day? He's like, and then he's like, oh yes, come whenever, you stay for as long as you want. And it's like, really? I just asked once and you're just giving me as much as like when? I surely sometime is, probably you're busy right now, like it's the harvest, or maybe some other time is better. And I had to work to figure this out. And then it would be like, oh yeah, come whenever, whatever. And then, it turns out the day before, it was, maybe actually this won't work tomorrow, or the morning of, or I try to reach out like, I've written to someone like 3 times, and then suddenly, and nothing for weeks. And then one day at 11 p.m., well, we are going out to the vineyards tomorrow. Would you like to come? We leave at 9 a.m. And it's like 11 p.m. the night before. I was like, if this were America, I'd be like, what the hell? No way. But now it's like, okay, this is how I do this. I must adjust to Georgian lifestyle.
And you say like, okay, I will be there at 8 or something.
Or more realistically, I'll be there at 10.
Yeah,
and then
give me GPS coordinates. I will be on video already.
Yes. Anyway, so I just learned to be flexible, and I think this is good for my own mental health as well, I guess, because it causes a lot of stress at the beginning. It caused a lot of stress, but normally I'm someone who always likes to plan, and if something goes, and I want something to go the way I planned it, and if something doesn't go according to plan, then I'm annoyed.
And now you became more philosophic about that, right?
Yeah. No, it's kind of taught me to be like, look, chill out, and things are not going to go your way all the time in life, and you have to deal with that. So it's kind of taught me that I think this will help me in the future and be less anxious about things I don't need to be anxious about. Something in the middle, of course. It's good to plan some. Yeah. Back to zeg. One thing I wanted to say was that it's also very interesting because I know in Georgian you also have the word for like day before yesterday, gushintzin. Yes.
But it's like two words.
Yes.
It's not one.
But this is what's interesting, right? You have this. It's easier than the day before yesterday.
Yes.
But you're right. It's still much longer than. It's
yesterday
not zeg.
We have like gushin. It's like yesterday.
Gushin yesterday. Yeah. Yes, I understand. Yeah, it's built out of these two. Yeah, but so that's interesting, right? It's still more, but still zeg is so common, because of the reason you're saying.
I also heard about I don't know how in English tradition, but they say like before industrial I don't know, like in old times they measure the distance between cities in days.
Okay.
I don't know how in English, but they say like, for example, riders. So it's like 2-day riding or like 5-day walking. Or
yes.
It was this kind of. So measuring distance in time, it's very modern and relativistic friendly.
Yeah. This is. The closest thing we see, especially in the U.S., that I've heard some Europeans are confused by, although I think it happens in much of Europe. I saw it in Germany as well. Is how far away the bus or the train is by minutes. It's like it's 2 minutes away. But it's like, well, if the train is stuck, then it's going to be 2 minutes away for 10 minutes. So it's like sometimes shouldn't it just be how many stops or something like that? But anyway, so I think that's the closest thing I can think of. Or like, it's a 2-hour drive. It's a 5-hour drive. This is very common in America. And people joke, you can tell someone is American if they're like, oh, it's not that far. It's only a 10-hour drive.
No, here we now in South Union, I think they measure more in kilometers.
Yeah.
So and then people from Russia, there was always there are big events, physics Olympiad or something like this. Mm-hmm. And usually our students was like, what this girl tell me? Like she's from Russia, and I said like, oh, you where you live? And she said like, oh, I live near Moscow, like 800 kilometers. Like, what kind of near it is? Like you said, like, and for them it's like kind of near.
Really, I didn't know that. Yeah.
And for us, like no, like it's like 10 kilometers Georgia. Already. Yeah. It's not if it's not walking distance, it's like far away. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, probably last question.
Okay.
I have like, what do you miss the most? Like here, living in Georgia, what do you miss about America or your lifestyle or whatever?
Okay. This is kind of silly, but the thing, the food. I mean, there's nothing I miss that like is like really important. Actually. It's and nothing that is like okay to go 1 year without, but something that I think about the most are just foods that I miss. Actually, some foods that I do. Some are cultural foods, and some are foods that there are two most important ones. One are bagels.
Okay.
So
we don't find it here.
They exist. I'm not very impressed with them. They're okay, but for the price and for what you get, it's not good for me. It's not worth it. I do sometimes. I've gone a couple times, and maybe I'd do it if I was really desperate, but I'd rather just forget about them for 1 year. It's just a food I really, really like. The other thing, the other food is not like a whole dish like this, but so I mentioned before I'm vegetarian, and I've not had too much trouble getting enough foods to eat here, because actually, even though a lot of Georgian foods have meat, there's a lot of vegetarian things, and it's easy enough for me to make my own.
You're
things.
vegetarian, not vegan?
Not vegan,
okay.
No. So yeah, that would be harder, but there still are some foods that are really easy to make, that are easy, like international foods that are easy to get in America that I can't get here. Mostly tempeh. So if you don't know, it's a soy product. I think it's from Indonesia originally, but it's used in a lot of East Asian cooking. It's similar to tofu, but it's harder. And it's like tofu, but it's much easier to cook. And like tofu, it doesn't have a lot of flavor by itself, but you just season it with some stuff and it can be very tasty. And it has a lot of protein, like a lot. And so in America, it was always so easy to make sure I had a good balanced meal with enough protein and this and that. And I can't find that here. But, compared to everything I get to experience here, these are very small problems. So. Okay,
no, I'm not asking about problems.
Of course.
I thought more about, like, you say something more nostalgic. I don't know, like election, like, I don't know.
Oh, elections, I don't miss those. Oh, God. Yeah. No, well, yeah. Is there anything of more significance that I miss more? I mean, I'm sure there are other small things like this, maybe a little bit more important than food, I guess. Mm-hmm. But nothing. I mean, it would be different if I was living here. If I was going to live here for a long time, and then I would think I would learn the things I really miss and like.
You are now like more in like more temporal mode, like about exploring and stuff.
Yeah, it's like it's fine. There's nothing really crucial that for 1 year I can't learn to buy something else or do something learn to do something different instead. So yeah.
Okay, I see. I think I torture you enough. torture you enough.
It was hardly torture, but no.
It was very nice from you that you agreed to come and participate in this experiment. I will definitely give you the link whenever I edit it. I'm not sure I will be quick in this regard.
No worries.
Yeah, but I'll like probably on somewhere between like month and 4. Georgian maybe time,
Yes.
I will put the link and like give you the English version and the Georgian version. I also try to prepare.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, thank you very much for being my guest.
Thank you so much for having me on. This was really fun.
Okay. დიდი მადლობა ყველას და ნახვამდის. იმედია მოგეწონათ ეს გადაცემა და იმედია საინტერესოდ ნახეთ ესეთი საინტერესო კვლევითი გრანტები ყოფილა იმისთვის რომ უბრალოდ კვლევითი არა. აი ეს პიროვნების გასაზრდელი გრანტები ყოფილა ამერიკაში მიღებული. ნახვამდის. და მადლობა ჩვენ პატრიონ მხარდაჭერებს. ნახვამდის.